Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle with two L's.
And I'm Natalie the Red.
And we are Forcify Entertainment. Well, we are here for another weekly roundup.
It's that time again.
It is. It's Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes. Well, hello to everyone that is already in the chat. Nice to see you, Stephanie.
Hi.
There's Natalie. Hello,
me.
Alan, Nina. I will be on Nina's channel tonight at 10 o'clock. So go to Nina Infinity and catch us there at 10 o'clock. And hello to Marcos, our awesome moderator, Marcos. What's up?
Yes, Marcos.
And R2 the Icky. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I botched his name the first time, but I've since learned.
You've since redeemed yourself.
And hello to you. Hello, Pat. Hello, Keeley. Hello, Share Bear. Good to see you here. Good to see all of you here. Hello, Derek. Nice to see you. And
everyone, hello.
And thank you very much, R2 to the Icky, or R2 the Icky for the $1.99 super chat. I like that laugh. Okay, so since you like that laugh,
you
then
know what's coming.
Exactly.
I like that laugh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you knew it was coming. You knew what you were in for when you sent that. So that one, I hope you enjoy. And hello, Shane. Nice to see you always. And to our good friend Josh, Sith Care Bear.
Hi.
Good to see you all. Well, we hope you guys are having an awesome week so far. Let's say I feel like this week's been a little quiet.
We hope it's been your day, your week, your month, and even your year.
Yeah, I feel like this week, last week there was, I feel like a lot of news. This week's been kind of quiet, except everyone, Sean Levy, who works on, he's like an executive producer on Stranger Things, and he worked on the Ryan Reynolds movie. What is it? Good Guy? Free Guy?
I think so. The Good Guy?
The Good Guy, I think.
You guys probably know what we're talking about.
The movie that comes out not this week, but next week. And he said that within the next 10 days, they were going to let us know about when Stranger Things season 4 is coming out. So we are excited for that.
Well, I saw a rumor of something that said, like, don't be surprised if it's sooner rather than later, or like sooner than you think.
Guys, if they somehow pull off a miracle and it's out this fall, oh gosh.
That would be amazing.
I need that. I need that in my life right now. I need Stranger Things season 4 to come out this year.
I do too.
I really
need it in my soul.
Yeah, not Good Guy, Free Guy. Thank you.
Guy.
And thank you, Keeley. You guys both got it. And Pat, you all had it. Yeah, Free Guy. I'll probably go see that. Are you guys interested in that movie? I think it looks interesting. And I mean, Ryan Reynolds is just so charismatic and fun.
Entertaining.
He is. He's an entertaining dude. So, and it's got Steve Harrington from Stranger Things.
That's true.
So we'll probably check that out. But well, we have a fun guest that I'm excited to discuss. And you guys know him. He's been around the block. He's been around the different YouTube channels. But we are going to bring out our guest, Kamran. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's delightful to be on your channel. I've actually been a fan for a while. I think I've only met one of you live before, so it's great to have both of you on.
Oh, thank you.
So glad you're here, and nice to meet you, by the way.
Pleasure, Natalie. It was Michelle that I met with last time.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was great.
Yes, we met on Echo Base Network that night. Yes.
That's right.
And when you were like, oh, I'm a fan of you guys, it was like, oh, it's always so touching to hear.
It's all good. Well, you look, guys, I have 20 years in Hollywood. I just like being around normal YouTube people because everyone here is crazy. So it's like, you guys yeah.
And Kamran, what is it exactly? I mean, I'm sure most of the people here in our chat have heard you before, but what exactly is it that you do in Hollywood?
Sure. Well, I've been a screenwriter, director, novelist for 20 years. I've done a lot of television. I've written and produced a lot of television. I started off, my very first job was on the Twilight Zone with Forrest Whitaker on good old UPN that no longer exists.
Okay.
A decent version of the Twilight Zone. And then my big claim to fame was a show that launched my career called Sleeper Cell, which is on Showtime, which is about a Muslim FBI agent who infiltrates a terrorist group and defeats them. And so that got a bunch of awards and whatever, and got a lot of attention. And I've done a lot of network stuff. I've worked on Bionic Woman and Kings on NBC. I've worked a lot on CW. I've been a writer and producer on shows like Nikita, Rain, and most recently I was a co-executive producer on Roswell, New Mexico. So I've been around. I've been around. Yeah.
Man,
Very cool. Impressive.
Nikita, that just got my mother if she's listening.
Yeah,
she loves
was a big
Nikita.
fan. She had all the DVDs.
she loved it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was ours was a very interesting iteration with Maggie Q. You know, it's had many iterations.
Yes.
It had the first movie, which was great, and then it had that really great series in the 90s with Peter Wilson. And then we had this wonderful show with Maggie Q. And I had been a fan of the show for many years, and I got to come in in season 4. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know our mom liked all the different versions of Nikita. I feel like Nikita's her James Bond.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Truly.
She seems really...
It's always, I mean, the idea from Luc Besson's original movie was always a really great idea, that you have this criminal who's essentially, the world thinks she's been executed. And so she doesn't have a life. And so now you're like, well, you know, you can either be a spy for this nefarious government agency, or we're just going to kill you like everyone already thinks you're dead. So it doesn't matter, right? And so it's a woman who's got nothing to lose. And so and then we took it to the level where, you know, in the movie and in the Peter Wilson series, it was about her working for this sort of shady covert organization. And our version of it was her turning against that organization and trying to bring it down. So it was sort of the next step of the story.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, that's kind of fun, even thinking about that. I haven't really thought about Nikita in a while, but it kind of goes into just kind of the craziness of today. And it's like a show like Nikita, that's what works. Like, that's a female-led show.
I mean, it was strong female, and she was sexy, and she was dangerous, and you didn't have to put on the one sheet, Nikita, strong female. It was self-evident. She would have her in a sexy red dress with like a machine gun in her hand, right? And that's all you need.
It goes without saying. It's true.
Exactly. And you didn't have to do like a female redo of Jason Bourne or James Bond. You just create a brand new original character.
Exactly. And it's got its own authentic story. I mean, it goes back to Luc Besson's movie from 30 years ago, where this is this character that has this very interesting backstory. And it you know, that was revolutionary back then. It's just like we're in this moment in history where we are in a generation of people that have essentially forgotten the past or had that past erased, and they think they're recreating everything from scratch and not doing a very good job at it. So,
yeah, exactly.
Agree, yeah,
definitely. Well, I wanted to pull something up because this was like the big thing I saw today. And as soon as I saw it, it was just like not shocking, but yet like, no, Hollywood. Like,
and nothing shocks me in Hollywood. 20 years here, I can't reveal most of the things that I know because they sound crazy. You sound like you're a lunatic if you reveal everything that you've seen and known. I mean, so nothing shocks me. Go on.
Yeah, I would say.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'll tell. Behind the scenes, I'll tell you some of the stories. They're pretty wild.
I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
Let's see. I wanted to pull this up. So, have you seen this story yet?
What's the story? I can't see it. It's are they?
Can you see this?
Let's see. So I know that they're stupidly thinking they're going to redo The Princess Bride. So is there some new development on that?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're just Variety is actually finally or kind of covering this again. That or no, wait, why did this pop up in my story? Oh no, there we go. Okay. Correct. But still, why is this in my story today? This was trending today, and I'm just now seeing
what kind of dumb headline is this? Sony Pictures Entertainment CEO says that very famous people whose names I won't use want to redo Norman Lear's The Prince. This is the CEO of Sony, and he's making this kind of comment. I mean, this is a bizarro comment made by nobody weirdos on Twitter, right? Like, my friend of my uncle has told me that he knows something. Oh, this doesn't make any sense, what you're showing me right now.
No, it doesn't. And I saw again.
Who talks like that? Not the head of Sony. That makes no sense.
It is a weird phrasing.
Again, I saw this on Twitter.
Very famous people whose names I won't use.
And that's always like your buddy who's like got a cousin that might be connected to a lawyer who works in the entertainment industry. Very famous people. I mean, that phrase is idiotic. It's like a sort of fringe weirdo fans phrase.
Yeah, it's like, who wrote this?
I mean, because no one wants to remake The Princess Bride. No, and I don't know who these famous people are, and that's why he didn't name them, because they don't really exist.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. This is what I was going to lead into with this, because I, for one, we actually did this as a live stream, one of our favorite movies. I personally believe The Princess Bride is basically a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And who on God's green earth would want
Would
to
mess with
redo something that is perfect. Like what
I mean,
you can
people
only
do
go
that. Like,
down.
remember they redid Psycho with Vince Vaughn, you know, as
Yeah.
and it was like it was a scene by scene, like camera angle by camera angle remake. It makes you realize,
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Hitchcock did it better. I mean, why would you do this? It's not even like we're gonna do something new with it. Here's a scene by scene, camera by camera remake, you know, shot by shot remake of a classic. And of course, nobody saw it because it wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
And I really like Vince Vaughn.
I
But
do
as soon
too.
as you said his name,
It's one of those
in
things.
that
A paycheck
role-
is a paycheck, right? His agent said, "Just take
Yeah.
it."
I just thought, no,
you got to
it's
pay your
fine.
bills. Just take it, move on.
Right.
but here's what I was going to get at, because I think with this, no one would be surprised at all if they tried to redo a perfect movie in The Princess Bride, because we're kind of at this place in time where all Hollywood does right now is either a sequel or a reboot.
Correct.
And it's just like, what has happened to the creativity of Hollywood?
Yeah.
Well, I can give you a very simple explanation. We are at a pivotal historical moment. You know, there's this ancient Chinese like fortune cookie saying, but it's actually true, which is an ancient Chinese saying that wealth is created and lost in 3 generations. First generation creates it, the second generation spends it, the third generation squanders it. Right?
Yeah.
And you see that. And so Hollywood, we are actually at the end of the 3rd generation. The first generation of Hollywood, and when I'm talking generation, it's really a 40-year cycle of people that show up in their 20s as excited filmmakers, and then they rule the roost until their 60s, and the next generation comes in. So basically from 1930, let's say, to 1970 is called the golden age of Hollywood. That's the birth. You know, we have sort of the silent films, but the birth of modern Hollywood are the talkies in the 1930s, right? So 1930, 1970, and that's the golden age that goes all the way through Lawrence of Arabia, right? Okay. And then in 1970, you have the second generation, which is, you know, the Coppolas, the Spielbergs, the Lucas, they show up, right? So from 1970 for another 40 years till 2010, they rule the roost. And now 2010, right around the time Disney buys Star Wars, all this crap really started, you know, think about it, just started a decade ago. It feels like the last decade we've been in this crazy twilight zone, right? And it's because we are at the 3rd generation, which is squandering the work of the first 2. So that's the process we're in.
Well,
That makes a lot of sense.
it makes tons of sense. And do you think it's because you brought up Disney? Do you think it's because it's become so corporate, where it used to be individual people like Lucas and these artists? Because
there's always probably a bunch of people behind them, but
yes, but today movies are almost made by committee. It's just almost like putting something in a factory and it's just produced.
Well, the first generation was all entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
On every level. It was entrepreneurs as directors, as actors. You know, you had Mary Pickford, you know, who's essentially the first movie star, who then created her own studio, right? You know, and so you had, I mean, everything was first time. Like, first time we're ever going to try this kind of lighting. First time we're going to do the special effects. It was all making it up as you go along. And that was true of the studios, right? MGM and all, you know, Louis Mayer, they were all entrepreneurs. They were essentially shoe salesmen from Brooklyn who went to LA to create movies in the 1920s and 30s. So they're all making it up as they go along. So first generation is pure entrepreneurship, right? That's why it's a golden age of Hollywood, right? And then you have things like Casablanca, which are these experimental films that are incredible, right? And then you jump into the 70s, which is exactly when those, you know, the Louis Mayers and all those guys retired or died off. So the studios started being bought out by Sonys, by corporations. And so then you suddenly had this new generation of filmmakers that suddenly noticed the change and didn't want to be part of it. So that's where you had the Coppolas and the Spielbergs and the Lucas who said, oh, I got into this, you know, like Lucas is very open about, you know, the fact that he was, you know, influenced by some great filmmakers from the classic era, right? And then now he's like, well, I can't do movies like those guys. So under the studio system, so I'm going to do my own thing. So they're the next new blood, right? But now there's a dance between the corporate structure and these entrepreneurs. Third generation, there's no entrepreneurs. They've been pushed out. So all you have are these corporate bozos. That's all you got, right? They're throwing the money at people like themselves, which are you know, dumb bozos. So yeah.
Yeah, because Natalie, what I was thinking, because like back in the day, as he's saying, entrepreneurs, like Warner Brothers was literally the Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
like it was these studios.
Yeah, MGM is Louis Mayer sitting there in his big office, right?
Yes.
Calling his mom in Brooklyn. I mean, that's what it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, and today it really is. It's like you see, I don't know, because do you think, I would say no, but you know more than me. Like, I don't even think Star Wars as we got it could be made today. Like the way Lucas fought so hard, tooth and nail, to get what he wanted for his movie. I don't know if that happens today.
Well, it barely happened then. I mean, he literally just got it because, he suckered some dumb executive to give him the toy rights, right? And so, I mean, that's what it was. And his wife did a really good edit to fix it, right? And had he not, he won the lottery there, and then he wisely took all the money for the toy rights and made his own movies, because you couldn't make Empire Strikes Back in the studio system. You could barely make the original Star Wars, much less Empire Strikes Back, which is not a traditional movie, which ends on a down note. The studio system wouldn't approve that, right? So as we saw, now we're seeing episode, this fake episode, whatever, 8 is what was it? Episode 7? I don't know. 7 was the Force 7, fake 7, whatever. That's just a bad remake of the original Star Wars, right? So you can't even. They try to go back to that, but that's the Star Wars that you make when you have corporate bozos running everything.
Yes, that's an excellent point. And thank you, Stephanie, for the $4.99 super chat. I remember back in the 80s, they wanted to remake Casablanca. The stairs they got stopped them. Oh my gosh, Can you imagine them redoing Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, like all these?
Well, they won't redo Gone with the Wind unless it's from like Mammy's point of view nowadays, right? Or so that's how they'll do it. Right? And I'll have to say this, and it's not popular for me to say this in Hollywood. I love Gone with the Wind. Objectively, it is a great movie, cinematography, acting, writing, and yes, it is a product of its time. And the characterizations do not match how we think of the historical period of the Civil War today. But at the same time, you look at it, this is a movie from the point of view of the Southerners. That's what the book is, right? The book is even more about that. And these are people that are seeing themselves as the heroes, even though they lost a war and their version of history ended, right? And so, but in Hollywood, you can't say that now. You can't say that you like Gone with the Wind, right? Because I was like, you look at Gone with the Wind, there's cinematography there that you can't do today. People have never copied it properly.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind is just a classic, and it's such a shame.
It's one of those I'll watch like once every 10 years, or it's like I want to put it on.
It's such a shame too, because she wanted speaking of Mimi, she won an Academy Award for that.
She was the first African American, period, an African American woman, right? To it. Yeah, this is, and the producers, the director, they pushed for her because the industry didn't want to give it to her. They didn't want to give her the nomination, and when she won. This is the world they were in. This is 1939. I guess it was 1940 when they got the actual award. And she had to sit at the segregated table at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Right? Because she wasn't allowed to sit. The hotel wouldn't let her sit with Vivian Leigh, and Clark Gable. She had to sit at the black people table. Right? And so that was so revolutionary for her, to win.
But she won.
She won. Yes.
She won.
And
if you watch her speech, it's such an emotional speech because she knows she's making history.
Yeah. It's just
absolutely.
It's so weird. Again, you said they like to rewrite history, and it's kind of like even just that. Like, why would you not look at that moment as, wow, what a turning point kind of moment?
Because that's the thing, is this current generation that we are in, certainly the younger end of that generation, likes to believe that everything it's doing is for the first time in history. Like, they're the ones that are going to save the world. So they can't be aware of the many generations that have saved the world a little bit each time to get us to where we are, right?
Right.
And so you have to erase all of that.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much, Roger H., for the $1.99 super sticker. Appreciate you, Roger. It's an interesting world. Do you have hope that are there any young up and coming George Lucas? Where are the George Lucases and the Steven Spielbergs?
They're beginning to come. They're beginning to come, and they're going to come from unexpected places. Like, I've recently done some talks on Midnight's Edge and other places about these two directors that you got to keep an eye out on. Did you ladies see Bad Boys for Life?
I have not. I've not seen any of those. So is Bad Boys for Life the last one they did?
That's one, the most recent one. It came out just before the lockdowns. It was like the last blockbuster or successful movie before all this crap happened. And so it was like January of 2019 or whatever. And so that was a sequel to these movies that had been made 20 years before by Michael Bay, and the movies were themselves fun. It's Will Smith being this, fun cop and whatever and all that. And now, this Bad Boys for Life was made. This third movie, 20 years later, is made by these two new young directors who are Moroccan from Belgium. They're Adil and Bilal are their names, and suddenly they're the ones who are now doing Supergirl. right? And they're getting a lot of attention because I have some friends who've worked with them, and these are young, aggressive kids, essentially from who had grew up in the suburbs of like Europe as minorities, getting their asses kicked, and have that vision that the '70s directors did. And so people are like grumbling about some of their casting on Supergirl, which I think is unfair because I think Leslie's going to be wonderful. I'm sorry, Batgirl as Batgirl. I think Leslie's going to be wonderful at Batgirl, but they're people that are the next generation that are coming, and they're not from the club. Random Moroccan Arab kids or from Belgium are not from the club in Hollywood, but they know how to make movies that the club wants. Like you go from Bad Boys to they're making very popular movies, and they know. And if you watch Bad Boys, what's great about it is that it is very much catered to the fan base of the original movies. There's so many in-jokes to the original movies. There's a lot of sexy women, and there's no embarrassment of having sexy women in a movie, right? You know, all of that. And so these people know how to give the fans what they want. And so guys like that are going to be what pull us out of this nonsense. The people that are currently leading this nonsense are all the club. J.J. Abrams, they're all the club. They're the people that are in the club that everyone, Mr. Kurtzman, they're all in the club. These two kids ain't in the club, but they're making big movies. So guys like that and ladies like that are coming.
Let me address this, and I want to get back to that. And thank you so much, Drunk 3PR, friend Jay. And he says, Hey, Michelle.
Jay, I'm not even going to say anything this time.
You guys have some history. You guys have a story. There's a story between you guys.
Yes, he likes to just address me.
He only addresses Michelle and not myself.
He trembling. Well, both of you ladies are lovely, but maybe he's trembling in the face of everybody, Natalie. He just can't handle it. He can't take it.
I like that. I'm going to go with that. I like that explanation.
And thank you, Mr. Butt Crack Media, for the 149 super sticker. Yeah. Appreciate you. And
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for the $3.99. The guys behind Fat Man are genius. Mm-hmm. I've not seen Fat Man.
I haven't seen Fat Man either. But Stephanie's got good taste, and she and I are friends, and she's got good taste and stuff. So yeah.
Gosh, I've heard people talk about it. I haven't watched it. And thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk, for the $5 super chat. I swear every stream I go to, Kamran is there, and I couldn't be happier.
I actually do have a job. I actually do like write, and people are like, don't you do? I was like, yeah, no, I actually do work, but I'm not always on the
But back to what we were saying, and just kind of where the next upcoming people. I think that's one of the reasons why Natalie and I, people know, of course, I grew up loving Star Wars. That was my main thing that I loved. And then recently, probably the biggest thing that I've loved and Natalie loves is Stranger Things. And if you look at what the Duffer Brothers have done, they pay so much homage to Steven Spielberg. But they came up with something new.
Spielberg when he was good, like in the 80s. Yeah, like good Spielberg.
Yeah. Yes, good Spielberg. Like
E.T. Spielberg remember who he was. Yes, yeah.
Yes. And it's like they pay homage, but
with a little Stephen King in there, and like
But here's the ingredients that what makes it great and a phenomenon. A new story, like originality, which has seemed to be lost. Yeah. Originality and well-written characters, and it's a global phenomenon. And sadly, it's just, I don't know, in today's world, there's so few of those around.
Because most people in the club are hacks. Yeah. They're hacks, right? At this third stage of the generation, they are the grandchildren of the entrepreneurs. J.J. Abrams is the son of a very powerful producer, right? And so it's not like, he landed here from Queens and just showed up and tried to bumble his way through. Like, Spielberg basically, he was an entrepreneur. He didn't even go to film school. He just walked his way into Universal Studios and grabbed an office and hoped no one noticed that he was there, right? And so that's ballsy entrepreneurialism. And, Mr. Abrams has talent. But I do think that it's easier to just regurgitate easy stuff when you're already in the club, you don't feel any pressure, right? You have already you're getting wealthier by the day to just remake stuff, and it doesn't challenge the artist that's within you. Like if you watch Regarding Henry, which is J.J. Abrams' first screenplay, he wrote it when he was 19, and again, he's 19, but his family was like a rich Hollywood family, so he got it to Harrison Ford. Like when I was 19, I couldn't get a script to Harrison Ford, but he could, and so he got it made with Harrison Ford, and it's a really good movie. And you're like, this guy's got talent. It's a unique voice. It's an interesting story. And then, he's like, it then just becomes easier after that to just regurgitate. Because now, you just you're already in the club, and now the club's like, hey, he's our new kid, right? And then you stop growing. You stop growing as an artist because the pressure's gone.
You know what it's like? It's kind of like career politicians.
Yeah.
And maybe we're craving something a little more anti-establishment. You know, in movies, like it's kind of mirroring that in a way. So
well, Hollywood and DC are the same thing. You know, people often say Washington DC is just Hollywood. Yeah, it's Hollywood with the ugly people, which is pretty accurate. So yeah, or what I guess Hollywood is DC with beautiful people. Whatever, it's the same thing.
Well, because you even speaking of J.J. Abrams, because his like hero is Steven Spielberg, right? I mean, I think that's
and all he does is mimic him, and which is unfortunate because he's like, you should, like you said, Stranger Things, you can honor someone and keep building from that, right?
Yeah.
But he's just mimicking him, which is unfortunate.
That's where I was going to get at. We're like a Duffer Brothers. They have paid you can see so much old Spielberg in their stuff if you watch it, but it's not like J.J. Abrams just trying to copy.
But it still feels like
original,
its own thing.
Yes. Yeah. Like they're paying homage, just like why do we love The Mandalorian? It paid homage to George Lucas, but it's its own thing.
It just confidently keeps moving it forward, right? Which is what art is supposed to do. And look, the one thing I'm very, very hopeful for, and I just recently saw the latest trailer this weekend, the new Ghostbusters. It looks absolutely because it's going to be that. Reitman is going to honor what his dad did, right?
Yes.
But you watch the trailer, like this is the logical next stage of this story, and you can tell from every scene of that trailer that he loves the original Ghostbusters, and you want to keep building that story.
Exactly.
It looks really good.
And that you're so right too on it being his son. And I watched a whole thing about him just talking about how he just so wanted to honor basically what his dad did. You can see that.
Yeah.
Or I even remember listening to an audiobook that was written based off of George Lucas's daughter's writings from Clone Wars.
Sure.
And she gave a thing at the end of the book that was just like, amen. Like you could tell she understood what her dad made. And it's just like
it's the topic at the dinner table, right? And if hopefully you have a good relationship with your family, you can continue the family legacy. Sometimes in Hollywood, you want to show your father you're better than them, or screw what you're a terrible father. I'm going to mess with your legacy. That's always a pathology too. So.
Yes.
True.
But you're so right with the new Ghostbusters one. It just seems. I'm really excited for it. It looks like it honors it, but like we're saying, it's its own thing too. Yeah. So I'm very excited for that.
And the casting, like you can see John's like kid or grandkid, whatever. You can see them like you can see the cast these kids look like the parallel adult versions, right? I mean, that's how intricately, and those kids look great as an actors. They don't physically look right. They look like their acting just in the trailers is incredible.
Yes. True. Yeah, I'm super excited for that. And thank you, Yojitsu, for the $5 super chat. We have two sexy women right here, and I'm not embarrassed.
I agree. I'm never embarrassed. I'm always on these like live streams with like 10 guys. I'm like, what is this crap? And these dudes, these dudes like they don't even put their faces on the screen. It's always like some icon, whatever. And
I've noticed that because sometimes when you're on, it's like it's just you, and then the rest are
there's like these 10 icons of dudes, and they're sitting there, and then sometimes you put their face on, like, dude, put the icon back on. Man, come on.
And Dark Helmet, thank you for the $5. Here, Natalie, you get a hey, Natalie.
Thank you so much, and that's all I'm asking for. Is that so much?
Thank you. Let's see what we got for that.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
You couldn't make Austin Powers today. Austin Powers would be canceled.
Oh,
it would be
100%.
So many comedies from like 20 years ago and stuff.
Because you have to have a sense of humor. You have to laugh at the stupidity of the human condition. You have to laugh that we're all morons. That's what and you can't right now. You can't. This group is righteous and this group is evil, and you can't laugh at either of them.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, in fact, I've almost wanted to talk about that on different streams. You see this, like, you can follow this journey of how comedy died in Hollywood. And really, like, the late 2000s, well, I would say, like, the Hangover trilogy, that was it. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can't do the Hangover today. You can't do the Hangover today. And I'll tell you the pivotal moment when comedy died, I really think, is that horrible fake Ghostbusters, one with the ladies, right? Who are talented actresses are given a garbage, and he's a talented director. And it's just this garbage production that you're like, what's happening here? I mean, are you all out of your minds? You're not idiots. You're all talented. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's something. And David, Chad with the $49.99.
Oh, that's $49.
Chad.
That sounds good.
Just a quick line, ladies. Have a great show.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, David. And that
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Austin, Dumb and Dumber, none of these movies I feel could be made today. We know Tropic
The
Thunder.
Naked Gun. Could you make The Naked Gun today? No, you couldn't do The Naked Gun.
Nope.
No.
Airplane. I watched Airplane in the theater just before all this lockdown crap, you know, and some of the original cast was there, and it was amazing. And you're like, you couldn't do those jokes about the black guys talking Ebonics or whatever, you know, talking jive. You could, and then the actors who played that were in that scene. These two African American actors got up and they told the story of how they made up all the jive using all this like black slang, and it was fascinating because they literally ad-libbed that whole scene, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that couldn't be done. I was actually talking to you because we saw talking to her who I always talk to.
What a shocker!
We went and saw Jungle Cruise, which I said was kind of a mixing of Pirates of the Caribbean and The Mummy.
And it was okay. It wasn't as good as either of those.
It was
fine. I enjoyed it this weekend. I wouldn't see it again.
Yes, exactly.
Those Pirates of the Caribbean Mummy I saw multiple times.
Guys, if you want our review of that movie, he just gave it.
He gave our thoughts.
That's pretty much what it is. It's perfectly fine. It's I mean, that's it. And Emily Blunt is wonderful as always, but whatever.
Yes. But anyways, it made me think of, because I said, wow, they really copied the setup of The Mummy. And I brought up Rachel Weisz's character. And I said to Natalie, I said, they could never do a female character like her from the original 1999 Mummy again, because she's too damsel in distress kind of. Even though she's incredibly intelligent, she's kind of a little silly. The word I used was she's a little bit silly, but it's a lighthearted, likable silly. It's not a negative.
Brendan isn't that great either. They're all kind of silly. They're all kind of ridiculous.
Exactly.
Right? The Mummy's the only one that's serious in that whole movie. He's always angry the whole time. He's so serious, right? Amongst on a moon. I mean, it's just like he just said that one thing over and over again.
But the point being is, like, say with a female character, God forbid a female character is portrayed as intelligent and a little bit silly.
Well, could you do Private Benjamin today with Goldie Hawn? Where she's like this ditzy, woman in the military that doesn't belong there, who's in over her head, right? I mean, that's the whole joke, right? You couldn't do Legally Blonde. You couldn't do Legally Blonde today, right?
No. Yeah. Nope. Legally Blonde's out. There's just so many movies that are out.
It's because all of those women knew their power. Rachel Weisz is one of the most beautiful women on the face of the earth and still remains that, right? Yeah. So she can play silly because she knows no one is looking at Brendan or anybody else when she's on screen, right?
Exactly.
Goldie Hawn knew she could be silly Private Benjamin because she's incredibly beautiful and you're just looking at her.
Exactly.
Well, in both those cases.
And make people laugh and be lighthearted. Yeah, exactly. They know what they're doing. They're smart.
They're having fun with it. It's a form of flirtation with the audience, and they're having fun.
Exactly. Yes. Instead, today you get these very serious, generic women characters that you just can't really connect with on the same way because they've lost that ability to be lighthearted, to be silly,
which was nice about Emily Blunt's character. They did the sort of alpha female. But then she's also vulnerable. She's got things she's scared of. That's okay, good. That's just a real character. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would say on that is they like kept hitting us on the head about the times that they were in. We were like,
the times. It was interesting to me see that they had the sort of, LGBT sort of sub thing. I was like, okay, that was inserted in because it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the story. And it was very, it's like, it's like, okay, let me just say I'm gay. And that time I was like, okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. But this is clearly not an important part of this movie. So you know why it's done that way? So it could be edited out of the version that's going to be shown in the Middle East and in China and other, so they just cut that scene right out. That's why it's done that way.
Man, you just nailed it. That's exactly because
think about that.
So guys, if you haven't watched Jungle Cruise, what is interesting about that scene that he's talking about is it just you already picked it up with the character.
It's almost like you didn't even really have to say it.
Which is how traditional Hollywood always did it. You always sort of knew the sort of hidden gay guy, who was, you all knew that character. You always knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Yes, and then they have the scene where they just like it's very awkward. It's very clumsy.
It's like, here, Mr. Rock, let me tell you about my sexual preference and how it oppresses me in the 1920s. It's like, 90. I mean, what? Okay.
And Mr. Rock's
And
like,
even The Rock is like uncomfortable in that scene. He's like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't think The Rock is uncomfortable with gay people at all in his life, but he's just like, even he's like, what is this scene? Why? He's like, okay, I'm just gonna read this line.
really? That's how it went, I think.
Because it was just so awkward, and then they don't even actually say he's gay. They just like talk. They just talk
Who you
around.
love or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. All right. And that's just pandering to the woke American market and easily cut out of every other market where that's going to be a problem.
That's
I mean, it's
it's
so
exactly what they
formulaic.
did.
It's a joke.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting when they do stuff like that is I feel like they don't appease either side. They don't appease the side that doesn't want that in a kids movie, and they don't appease the crowd that wants it in a kids movie.
And
And they want it to be like a major part of the
Go
story.
for it.
Whatever. I mean, but look, that's just Disney being third generation corporation, right? Which is, what they did with Star Wars. All their talk, and then the moment they got to show the movie in China, you take the black guy out of the poster, right?
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, and that's kind of interesting as far as Hollywood's relationship with China, because do you think they'll ever? I feel like I know that. Do you think they'll ever kind of quit catering to China so much? Because that's been the big thing lately.
They will. As they start realizing that China is never going to give them a bigger piece of the pie.
Yes, because
Yeah.
China keeps like 80% of the box office, right?
Yeah.
It's
like
something
it's the whole
crazy
embarrassment over like that now. Disney is dealing with this thing that Scarlett Johansson is suing them over Black Widow, a movie that I liked. Right.
Yeah.
And she's suing them over Black Widow because it didn't really even get released in China and all this stuff. And so it's like, well, China screwed them. Had it got a release in China, I think it would have done well in China and might have
Right.
covered some of Scarlett's concerns. But it's just like, now they're realizing, well, these guys are messing with our money. And the whole seduction of China, and I've worked in Beijing. I developed a TV show that based on Nikita, right? And so I've been in Beijing. And so I got to know them quite well. And it's, the whole seduction of the China was that we're going to give you lots of money. And it was a lie. And Hollywood's beginning to figure it out. Like now, Bob Chapek is like, this whole China thing is becoming a real problem for me. Like, it's getting my stars coming after me. It's going to change the next couple of years. I mean, China blew their wad. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for starters, you have all this the American audience that's not happy with them catering to China because we know what's going on right now in China.
Yeah.
And so you have that, but then you have these people literally catering to this group. So it's just like who's, as you said, just kind of pulling them along, never going to actually give them much. And it's just, you just think eventually.
And it doesn't matter until it blows up, like it's blowing up now. Right? It's blowing up now when they're desperate against the wall and these stupid lockdowns that never end keep hurting their theatrical stuff. And they try these angles with streaming and whatever. And it's blowing up in their face. And so now it's when we're like, you're going to pay us, or get lost. It's like that scene in Goodfellas. Fuck you, pay me. Right?
Yeah.
Fuck you, pay me. I don't want to hear the excuses. Fuck you, pay me. Right? And China's not going to pay them. And then that's when I think within the next 5 years, I'm always good. I was doing prophecies on my friend Andre's channel, Midnight's Edge. So I'm going to give you a prophecy here. I think within the next 5 years, there's going to be a major, major break between Hollywood and China when these economics will not be sustainable. And, and this new movie, this Shang-Chi movie that's coming out, I don't know that it's going to succeed in the US or in China. I just don't know that it will. I don't think that character anybody really cares about. The actor's perfectly good, right? I don't know that anybody cares about that character. And so that's a pandering movie that was done purely to get Chinese people to watch it. And I don't know that they're going to watch it. I don't know that Americans are going to go watch it. So then they'll be like, well, what do we do this whole movie for?
Do we know why they didn't put Black Widow in China? What was the reason?
I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff about, they had other movies at the time because you're dealing with the Chinese Communist Party. It's a totalitarian society. I mean, I've worked there. It's totalitarian and the corrupt party controls everything, right? It's like 1984, and so you got to deal with them. And their movies, they're banging their own stars, and so they got their own agendas, right? And so it's even worse there because literally, like movie stars will disappear there in China. like they don't pay their taxes and they vanish for a year and they come back and they're like, yes, I love the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, just like, where were they for the last year? Like they disappeared.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a strange country here, right? And so who knows what it was? It was some internal dynamics issue there. But at the end of the day, the Chinese, and when I say the Chinese, I'm not talking about the Chinese people. I'm talking about the
government.
I have to clarify that because I worked with the people of China, and they're like, can somebody get rid of these guys? We've been stuck with them for 70 years. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And so, but the Chinese Communist Party loves to screw with Americans. They love it.
Yeah.
They love the feeling of power that they have. I mean, I experienced this like when I went there 7 or 8 years ago. I was like, they love jerking Americans around. It makes them feel good.
Oh yeah, you can tell that.
I was gonna say.
Well, and that's what's so interesting. Say even like Warner Brothers, I'm sure they were banking on China for Space Jam because they've got, as he's nicknamed,
but why would they?
James.
Space Jam's got a black dude. They got a black dude, right? Why would they? That doesn't make any sense. And China is a racist society. They're racist to their own people. The Uyghurs are a different ethnicity, and they're being wiped out. So, I mean, if a different, like a Turkic Asian group is not good enough, you think some African American dude is going to be what they want to watch? No.
Yeah, and it's just just kind of almost funny because LeBron James, I mean, he even has bashed Americans for speaking out against what went on in Hong Kong.
I mean, all of these suckers think sucking up to China is gonna make a difference. It's like what's his face, Mr. Wrestler dude on the Fast and Furious 9, right?
John Cena.
John Cena. Who's in the? I mean, look. I mean, when I watched him apologize in Mandarin, I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
You have now got the contempt of both the Chinese people and the American people, right? I mean, you look at the pathetic. I mean, the Chinese people respect Gina Carano more than they respect John Cena because they're like, oh, this chick's got balls, right? Whereas this guy's like, oh, he's coming to us, kissing our ass, talking our language. They know what that's all about.
It was kind of embarrassing.
It was very embarrassing.
Really embarrassing.
Kind of cringe.
And then the Fast and Furious wasn't a good movie. Look, they're all dumb movies, except the first one, I think, which is a very good movie. But they're enjoyable dumb movies. And this last one wasn't even an enjoyable movie. It felt tired and exhausted, to me at least.
Do you know, I saw the first one and that was
never
it.
Seen
I checked out.
Yeah, I know it's such a huge franchise.
Yeah.
Well, watch the first one. The first one is a very good movie. It is an objectively good movie.
Yeah, and then from there on, they just keep getting sillier and sillier.
Yeah, they get sillier. But even the last one before this one was silly, but it had heart to it. And this one had no heart to it. Even though it's a big family drama, you discover this character had a brother you never knew about in the 8 movies before that he had this brother, right? And he had this estranged brother, but he's like, even then there's no heart to it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and that happens a lot. Thank you, Michael, for the $5 super chat.
You.
Great show, girls. First time seeing Cameron. What a great guy.
Where have you been, Michael? I've been all over the damn internet for the last 18 months.
He is
Where have you been? But thank you.
Yeah, he's all over the internet, so you can definitely find him. And thank you so much for the $9 super chat. I see Cameron everywhere on YouTube and never get tired of hearing him talk about pop culture. Love your channel, ladies. Best of luck to you. Thank you so much. Let's see what we got.
I like that laugh.
Don't bring Bieber up. Don't bring Bieber up. I have a Bieber limit.
He's like, not the Bieber, anybody but Bieber.
Don't bring Bieber up. Whatever. Look at. But yes, Michael, I do appreciate that. I'm the first time you've ever seen me. Hopefully, I won't disappoint. So it's all good.
Well, and I wanted to get into too, because you kind of your first time off Twitter, you had kind of, I think, ticked people off, from my understanding.
Lucasfilm off, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was making some very pointed comments about Lucasfilm, and then suddenly I got pulled, and I got a message on Twitter. You've been banned because of promoting spam. Okay, I was on Twitter for 10 years and promoting spam, whatever. So that's their standard, like promoting is their excuse to get rid of everybody they don't like, promoting spam. They don't have to explain it, and whatever. And then I snuck back on with a new account and like found a secret way, and I was on for about 2 more months, and I actually regained my entire lost fan base, follower base. And then I got into a mistake of getting into an argument with some dumb lawyers that were like working for Facebook and supporting how Facebook can censor all these things. And being a former lawyer myself, I got into an argument with one of these guys, and then he literally sicked all of his followers who were crazy lawyers on me. And then they were not, and having been a lawyer myself, lawyers are crazy people, right? They're like not normal. And they're like, a lot of them are really bitter, angry, like nuts. And so these people were not just like your standard trolls. These are people with like, who have access to like legal databases and government databases. So they started posting stuff about my personal life, like from databases and stuff, like putting them on there. I was like, well, you're all crazy. Like you're all crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then Twitter pulled me again because you can't criticize Twitter or Facebook. So, and then I was like,
Well, and does that not show? I know you've been on with Carrie Smith before. She uses the phrase.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
She uses the phrase "the cathedral," talking about legacy media, and
she uses that phrase. I tease Carrie. That's a very haughty-taughty phrase, but it fits her hats. I love her hats, right? But yeah, no, I just call this whole thing the club, right? I just call it the club.
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say, because say like even with you talking about Lucasfilm and then Twitter coming into play, it just shows how intertwined and connected everything is.
Absolutely, because they're all part of, they're defending a narrative, which is what the club does, right? And they see themselves at war with us peasants, right? Yeah. And they see me as sort of like, I may not be the most famous dude in Hollywood, but I'm a working person in this town. They see me as a dangerous person, because not only that, I'm actually a minority. I'm a Muslim, and I'm exactly what I'm supposedly minority on their side, and I'm out speaking against them. Malcolm X did that, and they took care of it, right? When you don't fit the box the system wants for you, it gets rid of you real fast.
Yeah, well, definitely.
You be careful.
I'm still here. Amazingly, after 20 years, I still have a career. But like I said, the reason I talk is I've made so many enemies already before all this that I'm like, all right. When I learned, I was like, oh, people are like, oh no, Cameron, no, he's great. I just don't like him. All right, I'm not going to hire him. I'm like, all right, okay, perfect. When you know that, okay, well then there's nothing to lose now, so I just might as well talk, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Liberating.
Well, and so are there more people in Hollywood? Because we think of Hollywood as just Hollyweird and these, as you said, people who view us as peasants. Mm-hmm. Are there more people in Hollywood that just want to make good entertainment and don't care about all this other nonsense?
They're a minority, and most of them keep their mouth shut. Because I've had people say to me, wow, I've had well-known screenwriters like DM me saying, I wish I had the balls to say what you're saying. I totally agree with you, but there's no way I'm going to say that, right? I mean, because I actually want to work. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. But there's still the minority. Most people in this town don't have any convictions. Their only desire is to fit into to break somehow into the club, hang out with J.J. Abrams, at a nice dinner party or whatever, and go to nice Illuminati. And when you get really high, you get to the Illuminati occult parties. Well, that's the highest level, right? So they want to get into that stuff. They're like, the last thing they want to do is today, protest for Tibet. Tomorrow, China is our friend. I mean, whatever the official word is, they go with. So
well, exactly. That's why why did I just forget his name? The guy from the original Office, the British Office.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Ricky Gervais.
That's why his speech was just so epic, because he called that out.
Yeah, it was so cool.
You can see the looks on everyone's faces. They didn't like it. They kept panning at Tom Hanks, everybody else. They didn't like it, and I don't think he's been invited to do that again. So
I don't think he's ever getting invited to do that again.
They made several memes out of that Tom Hanks face, like when he does the eyes.
Well, whatever. Well, look, I mean, this is it's like being that annoying person who shows up and crashes someone's dinner party and makes a scene, right? And, I actually, with Carrie, we were going to do this weekend with Carrie Smith, we were going to do a review of the movie from the 60s, The Party, right? Okay. Because she's doing this new sort of problematic movies you can't make today. And the first one is going to be The Party. And if you don't know The Party, you should see it. It's from 1968. It's Peter Sellers playing an Indian guy in brown face. So already it's problematic, right? Okay. And it's basically this like Indian guy who's an actor, who's a bumbling idiot, but he's a sweetheart, right? He's a good heart, but he's a bumbling idiot who accidentally gets invited to a media mogul's like Hollywood party. Like he got fired off the film, but he accidentally gets invited to the studio boss's party. And by the end of the movie, literally the whole house is on fire. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles, where this one sort of sweethearted, bumbling guy reveals the hypocrisy and the stupidity of everyone in Hollywood. And it is people watching, they're like, it's like they can't even handle Hapu, and having this like Peter Sellers play like this bumbling Indian guy, right, is too much. But what it is, it's a commentary about how Hollywood is, right? And you need this one guy to bumble in, doesn't belong, to reveal it.
Oh, but they definitely could not make that today. Just from the first thing you said,
Peter Sellers in brown face, right?
In fact, I'm surprised they've not already burned every copy that is left of this movie.
Right.
It's available. Like if you have Amazon Prime, you can like watch it for free. So I watch it free on Amazon. So I was like, I don't know how long Amazon Prime is going to keep that up, but whatever.
They'll have to give a disclaimer before.
Yeah, I had like a writer I worked with who was one of these woke jerk-offs once said, well, I have no problem with showing Gone with the Wind, but it has to have a disclaimer on it. I was like, no, why don't you just show the movie and let people come to their own conclusion? It's not your job to put disclaimers on things. Let people come to their own conclusions and debate it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
Like, I think they'll pick up on the cultural changes in society and the way we've evolved. I think they'll pick up on that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think people will go, wow, we don't say that anymore today, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
you know,
that
and
just shows
maybe some
what
of these
you
slaves
said.
weren't as happy as they're portrayed in the movie, right? And so, yeah, so maybe
That
that's
just
probably
says-
true.
That just says shows what you said before, just that disconnect, like the peasants.
Yeah.
Like you got to tell the peasants how
Yeah,
to
because the
think.
peasants don't have any sense of history or morality. You know, it's
Yes.
these people who have, because these people don't have a center. Like I said, they don't have a morality, so they can't believe that the average person is no longer really racist. The average person really
Yeah.
isn't
Right.
homophobic anymore. I mean, gay marriage is legal throughout the United States. 10 years ago, that wasn't. I mean, Obama said he opposed it. I don't think we're ready for gay marriage. And now he's like, now he's like, I support, trans and all this stuff. He's like, well, you didn't support that when you were president, Mr. Great Liberal Black guy, right? And so, but that's
Funny how
10
that
years
works,
later, that's the
right.
world we're in. And so it's like the average person is already more progressive than I could have imagined 10 years ago. So what are you
Yeah.
preaching to them for, man?
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads me in kind of the last thing that I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about with you as far as where do you see from your experience in Hollywood, is there any end in sight to Hollywood concept? Because as we've said,
Yep.
you go back to old movies like, say, even I rewatched recently Giant with James Dean and Liz Taylor and them.
Yeah.
They address racism and sexism in that movie, but it makes sense because it's back in a time that it was very prevalent.
Yes.
And-
And even then, it's not done in this way that's self-righteous and preachy. It's done through good screenwriting and good acting. Right?
Exactly.
And you're making a statement and playing to people's emotions and I think, evoking compassion maybe through this, but like you said, it was relevant to the time. It was very
Yes.
much that was needed and a good thing to spread.
Where now it's like they're rewriting history and we're back in the in segregation era and they're having to preach all over to us why that's wrong.
Well, what they've done is because that's a problem with progressivism as an idea that, I had this argument with a friend of mine who said history is progressive. I said, no, history is cyclical, man. What are you talking about? It's a pendulum. It goes here and then it's going to switch back. And what you're already seeing is, we got to a place where gay marriage is good. People are leaving trans people alone and everything's good. And suddenly we're like going back to now we're segregating people. Now we're like, the black people have to be in this room and hear this lecture and the white people have to. It's just like, because you've progressed so much that there's nothing to fix. So you got to screw it all up again to fix it.
Right.
Yeah. That's pretty
that,
true.
That really does feel like what it is.
Well, and what I'm getting at too, do you think there's any end, like, is there any end in sight of Hollywood to quit like messing up IPs that we love, or just being so preachy and just getting back to, say, A Quiet Place Part 2, that look what it did at the box office.
What a great movie. And I loved it. I love the first, I love the second.
Me too.
Look, it's going to be individuals like, who have some confidence in what they're doing, like people in Quiet Place Part 2. It's like the directors that I mentioned from Bad Boys, who just love the original franchises. The problem is the club, these people are people that, aren't really at the heights of the club. The club is just this bunch of guys sitting there jerking themselves off, right? I mean, they're sitting there, being pretentious and trying to live up to their grandfather's image or whatever. And there's a profound insecurity there. That's why they can't create something new. And all they can do is mimic stuff or ruin other stuff from the past, right? It's a profound insecurity.
That's what they do for the most part, is just ruin things.
Yeah, and so we're going to a place where the club is cracking. It's destroyed itself. Like the economics of Hollywood is the very fact that Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney, right? That's a major thing that no one would have saw coming. And and so the industry is cracking in many ways. A lot of the choices they made in the last year really destroyed the industries economically. We're at a place right now, and I don't want to get too much into the politics of the lockdown and medical stuff, but I will say this: the industry right now is at a place where, out of a desire to fit in, people in the industry take the most alarmist interpretation of these events that we're going through, right? And, and the problem is that's all done so they can virtue signal each other. Look how safe I am. I want to preserve life, right? At a party where none of them are socially distancing, right? So but they're just doing that to virtue signal their righteousness when it's actually messing their money up. Like the more alarmist it becomes, the more like, oh, you got people. You got to. LA has said you got to. Nowhere else. LA has said you got to wear your mask now. When you go to the theaters. Theaters were doing great. And now when I went to see this, people aren't going back to theaters again because they're like, what? Why do I have to wear a stupid mask? I don't have to wear a stupid mask in Glendale. I don't have to wear a stupid mask in Orange County, but I have to wear one in Los Angeles, right? Just to go to see a movie. So that's hurting their economy.
Yes, exactly. That's an amazing point, because so much of the stuff that they are doing is hurting their economy, and it just,
there's no way it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, this goes against how you make money.
And I think that's what gets me is there going to be a point where a Disney or Warner Brothers, they just want to make money?
And that's coming. What we're seeing is Discovery bought Warner Brothers, right? Warner Brothers was an example, just like Disney. But the thing is, Disney always had some bean counters saying, I don't like where this is going, boss. I don't think Lucasfilm isn't making us money. Disney always had some voices. The problem with Warner Brothers, and I've worked actually multiple times with Warner Brothers television studio. The television studio is generally fine. They make good TV shows. The movie studio has had a lot of problems because it's this club mindset, right? And we saw that with the entire sort of, how they did all the DC, movies with this, and all that, and the Zack, Snyder verse and all that stuff, and how they mishandled the whole thing. And they mishandled it now for like 10 years, right? But they won't course correct. And AT&T tried to make them course correct by giving them the Snyder people, the Snyder cut and whatever. And the AT&T executives didn't want that. They were angry about that because that embarrassed them, because they were like, we're done with Snyder, right? And now the big thing that's happened is Discovery has bought Warner's, HBO Max, all of that. Discovery, I'm a huge fan of Discovery. Like the only I have Netflix now. I don't watch them. I watch Discovery Plus every day. Right, because I love like Bigfoot shows and like haunting shows and paranormal stuff and UFOs, and that's all they got all that stuff. And like, it's because they don't care that people in Hollywood make fun of UFO hunter shows, right? Because the audience loves it and it makes them a lot of money. And so Discovery has come in, and Discovery's like, we got to give the audience what it wants, man. That's what our company is. I don't care if your club is embarrassed by that filmmaker. The audience wants that filmmaker. We're gonna do that.
Yeah, it's just like how do people sit down in a room before Star Wars Episode 7 comes out, and they don't go, what is the number one thing the audience wants? The three of them back together again for a scene.
Well, because that's the thing is the people didn't sit down in the room. You had Bob Iger who basically said, here, Kathleen, you run it, right? And then Ms. Kennedy had her own agendas, right? And had her desire to put her stamp on this thing. And I think had some personal philosophical things about white men and blah, blah, blah. And, I've lived in the shadow of white men like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas all my time. So I'm going to put them all in their place. I think there's a lot of those weirdo pathologies that certain people have in this industry, right? And they got into those choices because there's not rational. It isn't rational choices. Like you said, the simplest thing is to just give the people what they want. The way to do it is the way to do those movies would have been, you had the three of them together, you see everything's great with the Republic, and then you see the rise of this new evil force, and the whole trilogy is about one by one they're passing the torch to Rey and to all these other characters, right? And then by the end of that trilogy, you're totally in love with these new characters, and they've given a nice honorable farewell to the old ones, and you go with the new ones. But they're like, well, screw all these old white men. That's what it was. Screw these old white men.
You are so right. They could have gotten like 6 movies out of this had they played their cards right.
Absolutely. They would start Rey's a small character, and she becomes the heroine, the major one by the end of the third. And Luke, maybe passes on, but he passes on after passing her the torch, whatever. And then we're like, wow, we want to see what she does with his lightsaber in the next 3 movies.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
That would have been a lot better. And thank you, Michael, for the $5 year or euro. Dr. Strangelove is one of my favorite films of all time. Peter Sellers and George C. Scott are out of this world.
Thank you for the super
thank
chat.
you so much for that. That's why I've so enjoyed again listening to you on different channels, because I said this to you on Echo Based Network. I come from a entrepreneur type father has his own business family, where in the real world in business, you treat your customers with respect and love.
Because nobody's going to save you. If your dad insulted the customers, no one's going to rescue his business when it goes under. In Hollywood, you've got a club of people that are funneling money to each other. What is this whole thing about Mr. Kurtzman getting another $150 million when obviously nobody's watching Star Trek and the fans don't want it, and the guys making the toys don't want it, whatever? That's purely money laundering in the club. There's no rational economic reason to keep this guy on. Let his contract expire, wish him well, and like bring Ira Stephen Bear, who was my boss from, he worked on Deep Space Nine, he created Deep Space Nine. Bring someone like that who knows the world, give it to him, right? But Ira's a successful guy, but he's not a club member like these guys, right? And so they're gonna give, the club just gotta funnel money to the club. It's all money laundering.
Yeah. Well, final question I want to ask you tonight is, do you think there's any hope as a Star Wars fan? Is there any hope that Kathleen
there's
not
lots
get
of hope.
renewed?
There's lots of hope. Like I said, I really do, and I've said this to my friends, Midnight Edge and other places. I really do believe the civil war between Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau is over. I believe Mr. Favreau has won. I believe Ms. Kennedy will retire with many awards and accolades and move on, and then Favreau will quietly take over. Whether he's in name or not, his vision will take over. So I actually think Star Wars is fine. The next battle is Marvel. That's the battle we're seeing right now. Right, it's Feige versus Chapek, right? But I think Star Wars is settled, so it's where Marvel is going to be the thing that the fans are going to grumble about for the next 5 years. But Star Wars, I think, is done. It's going to be okay.
Well, and why on that? Actually, why do you think Kevin Feige, who's been so smart up until this point, is beginning to go down that path that he should have already been play out 10 times in front of him and knows?
Well, I've said this. Not everyone agrees with the statement. I don't know Mr. Feige. I know people who know him, and this hasn't come from them. This is just my perception, right? I think Kevin Feige is a brilliant guy, but he was an outsider, right? He came in, he was successful in Marvel, and he did this outsider strategy, comes in, does Iron Man, and nobody took that seriously in the industry, and then it explodes, and then he becomes this incredible figure. And he essentially broke into the club, right? From outside of it. And remember, this is not 1925, where that's a good thing, where the club is coming into existence by entrepreneurs. These are people that are smugly sitting there, and this entrepreneur comes in, gives the market what it wants, and he breaks in. So they kind of resent that. They don't want a reminder that they are a bunch of entitled clowns, and he's a guy who's giving the audience what it wants. So, but once you get into the club, though, you start liking it. You start being invited to these huge cocktail parties with President Obama and stuff like that. You like it, right? And then what happens is the entitled grandchildren club starts giving you bad advice. They start saying, hey, you got your movies, they aren't really reflective of where the culture is right now. You've got to really make them more progressive, right? And you start hearing that more and more from people whose respect you want. And it starts seeping into your mindset.
Basically, you're saying it's kind of like in Mean Girls, where she actually becomes a mean girl for a time.
Correct. I believe this. They're sabotaging him. Because it doesn't make this new stage of Marvel. Granted, it's not as woke as Lucasfilm was, right? Which was so blatant, and it still has good storytelling, even if it has some sort of unnecessary political messages now being put onto it, right? But that's all somebody sabotaging him, and him loving the attention he's getting and wanting to be liked in Hollywood. First, he wanted to be liked by the fans. Now he wants to be liked by Hollywood. That's where the mistake is. Because Hollywood doesn't want him to succeed.
Yes, yeah. I mean, again, does
that feel like real to you? I always speak for the truth, and people are like, that sounds right. Yeah, because
definitely.
It 100% is right, because that's even you say in Hollywood politics, they're the exact same world. Yeah. Politicians right now have a choice to be made. Do you appease your club? Or
do you give your constituents what they want?
Yes. Or do you give the people what they want? Are you going to be a people person or, the club person?
Yeah. And that's exactly the parallel fight right now. And most people are going with the club.
Yeah.
Because it's safer, because the club has a lot of money and power today. Right?
Yes.
But the world is going to change. In 5 years, I think American politics will be completely different. And I think Hollywood will be completely different in a better way.
I like that.
I take that. Like it. In fact, we'll end on that.
We'll end on that. That's my production. This is going to be like remember 1940. It looked like the world was over. It looked like the world was over, and that we were going through a dark age from which the planet would never emerge. 1945, it was over. Yeah, and a new age began. So, and the same thing. 1861, the world, America is breaking apart. It's never going to get any better. 1865, it's over and a new world begins. It's usually a 5-year window when these things happen. So really from 2020, when the world started breaking apart, to 2025 is what we've got to survive. And then by 2025, it's going to be a new world, and there'll still be jerk-offs, there'll still be new problems, but we are seeing the death of an old world and the beginning of a new world. Same thing happened in 1861, same thing happened in 1940, same thing's happening now.
Hey, everyone,
Very
ladies,
interesting. I like that.
we claim this that better things are coming.
Yeah, we'll end on that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. Again, I've heard you, and you bring such a you give me kind of an insight that I would never have as someone who's not a part of that club. And it's just interesting.
Hey, he's not in the club.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's
I'm not in the club either. I'm the guy. They're like, oh, you almost got in the club. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
he's been around the club. He knows how the club works because he's been.
I briefly bumbled into the club and they got rid of me real fast.
Yes. Yeah. But you know how it works. And that's what I always find it interesting speaking with you or listening to you, just hearing those insights that you have from your experience. So thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you for time. And if I can plug one thing before I go, if anyone love, my website is my name, KamranPasha.com, and I'm a novelist as well. And people have actually been reading my novels after seeing me. So here are my 2 novels. They're historical books. This one's Mother of the Believers, and that's a novel about the birth of Islam from the point of view of the Prophet's wife. And here's a novel on the Crusades I wrote, Shadow of the Swords. So if you like anything about Richard the Lionheart, that's a great novel on the Crusades. So you can buy them through my website or on Amazon, and I'll plug that. And hopefully you guys will like them.
And I know Marcos, our moderator, he's had your website and your books and different things going in our chat. So
Perfect.
Yes, so thank you so much. And
I'd love to come back on again, and maybe we'll come back on when there's some major. I mean, there's major news right now that's happening with Kurtzman, but it's going to be a lot more craziness as we're coming on. So I'd love to come back on.
We'd love to have you back.
I feel it with Hollywood. There's always going to be some.
The drama.
Yeah, there's no.
So yes, we'll definitely have you back on again. And thank you everyone in the chat. You guys are awesome. It's been a great chat this evening. And so that is it for this weekly roundup. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right, bye guys. Bye.